I am so excited that you are here. If you don't know me, I'm Cheryl Gould. I am the founder of Moms of Tweens and Teens, and I am also a parenting educator and relationship coach and mom of three kids. And I love you guys. I love this group. I love what's happening here. I love Jen Keel works for me, and she's the COO, and she finds all these awesome memes, and I was looking at them last night and laughing out loud. They are so funny, and she schedules everything, and she's just awesome. I want you to know that I am going to be showing up here every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central, and you can email me questions that you have at Cheryl at momsoftweensandteens.com, and then I will answer them. And I want to be just answering your questions every week because there's so much going on right now, and kids going back to school, and a lot of anxiety, and a lot of just our kids trying to recover from COVID. And, it's like, I feel like we're out of the woods, but we're not totally out of the woods. And so there's just a lot of anxiety, a lot of mental health issues, kids cocooning in their bedrooms and hard to get them out. Then, of course, you're dealing with technology and all of that. And it's just, as I list so many things, it's exhausting, isn't it? There's so much going on. And the questions that were submitted, I felt like there was this theme, this overall theme about boundaries and setting limits. And I put setting limits when I put a little title because I find that I use the word boundaries a lot. But if you're like me, 15 years ago, when my oldest was a tween, I didn't know what boundaries were. It was something that I I read a book, Boundaries, by Henry Cloud and John Townsend, probably 20 years ago. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm having my migraine headaches. That's why I'm exhausted all the time. That's why I feel like I'm not taking care of myself. And I'm just like running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And then once I started becoming aware that I didn't have good boundaries, I was able to start making some dramatic changes in my life that has impacted every area of my life and my relationships and the way that I parent and my marriage and so many things. So I really want to share a few things with you about boundaries. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to get over here to my notes and say hi. Feel like you can submit questions in here and I can go back and answer your questions as I go through this. But I want to give you 5 keys today to setting limits or boundaries that work. But I also want to ask you some questions to start with that is like a little quiz on if you need boundaries. Now, I have to tell you, on our website, momsoftweensandteens.com, I wrote this article, this blog post, I don't know, probably 3 years ago, called Confessions of a Boundaryless Mom. And I talk about my struggle, and I can put it in the comments because I get so much good feedback because moms are like, thank you, thank you. I just want you to know we're all working on this, that it is not just like one day we get this and then it's like, oh, everything's perfect, right? We're working on this. I work on having healthy boundaries every day, every day. How do I take care of myself? What do my limits need to be here? What are my expectations? We often think of, we want people to respect us, right? We want them to respect us. But one of the things that I've learned over the years is it's really about me learning to respect myself and my time and my limits. And that filters in to setting limits with our kids. So let's dive in. And I'm excited. I love talking about this. I love writing about it because I'm always working on it. So it's like what I always need to remember. And this little quiz you can use to ask yourself these questions as you go through your day or when you need to set a boundary. Okay. So I want you to think of boundaries like wearing a backpack. And in my workshops around boundaries, I have a backpack and I have it filled with like some rocks. And I say, oh, I'm carrying this, and it's weighing me down. And I'm carrying this and I'm carrying this. So I want you to think about like, what are the rocks that you're carrying around in your backpack? And then we're going to unpack it, okay? We're literally going to unpack your backpack. So when we lack boundaries, these are a few of the signs, okay? We tend to do more than our fair share of what our kids can do for themselves or others in our lives. We're doing more than our fair share. We jump in and we tend to offer advice, or we might rescue, or we're trying to manage everybody, make sure everybody's happy and there's no conflict. Who does that? That is so exhausting. And we also take responsibility for choices our kids make, or actions, or behavior. We tend to take on more responsibility than belongs to us. We bribe, we overdo, we plead, we nag, we do all these things, and we don't allow natural consequences to to fall into place. Now, I want to tell a personal story that I think will be comforting to all of you. And when my youngest was arguing, now this is once I got my boundaries together and I was more clear about my own limits and boundaries. My youngest was in middle school and she wanted to go on a date with a boy and to a movie. And I was uncomfortable. My husband and I said, no, she's too young. We're not open to that. And we all have different, our boundaries are different for each one of us. But that's just what we felt comfortable with, is no, you're not going to do that. And sure, he can come over to our house and hang out. We can get to know him, but not going to go to a movie. So anyway, she was begging, pleading, and then my oldest calls me. Now she's in her 20s, and there's a 9-year gap there. And she hears her, and she says, "Mom," and I was a definite no, but she says, "Mom, don't cave in. Don't cave in like you did with me." And I was like, there it is. Oh my gosh, right there. This kid, my oldest, was so strong willed. She was fighting, fighting, fighting. Whenever I would say, my husband and I would set a boundary, she would just argue and plead and argue and plead. Now, that's a whole nother story. But to hear her say, I had essentially what she was saying is, I wanted boundaries and you caved in. And I caved in for several reasons. First of all, I hated conflict. Second of all, I was really unclear about what my boundaries were. I wanted her to like me. Like I felt I was struggling in my relationship with her and I'd feel guilty. And then because we were struggling in our relationship, I would say yes to her to try and make her happy. But then we would get in arguments and power struggles. And it was really messy because I was so unclear. So in this live, I'm hoping that by sharing with you some of those things I learned, I can help you get clear so you can stay out of that power struggle and that arguing that can go on. So oftentimes we lack boundaries because we're scared. A lot of that is fear-based. And I'll get into that a little bit. But here are some signs, okay? These are 8 signs that you need boundaries. All right, you ready? You find yourself feeling resentful, angry, taken advantage of, burned out, and underappreciated. Who can feel that way sometimes? We all can, right? All can. Even when we have good boundaries. But this is a little dashboard. I want you to think of it like a dashboard light, like it's a blinking dashboard light, especially resentment, that we need boundaries. You think or say things, this is number 2, you think or say things like, I can't believe you are so ungrateful after all I've done for you. We might not say it out loud, but we're thinking it. I can't believe you're so ungrateful. Look at all I'm doing for you. We're thinking that, right? Or we might say it. What have I done wrong that my kid behaves this way? That's another common one we can feel. Or we're walking on eggshells, and this kid or person, but we're going to talk about our tweens and teens today. We're walking on eggshells because we don't want to upset them. Who has a kid like that where you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Number 4, when you say no, your tween or teen badgers you until you give in. They wear you down, right? Nothing like a tween or teen that just is so good at wearing you down and you finally cave in. Number 5, you're tired of constantly nagging, reminding, or complaining about what your tween or teen is not doing or what they are doing that irritates you. And number 6, you are feeling hurt or angry because of your tween or teen's disrespectful behavior or attitude towards you. And they may be acting demanding, entitled, or blame you for something that's their responsibility. So who has a blamer? Tweens and teens are really good blamers. They're very good at blaming. And I want you to know, if that's your kid, that a lot of this is just developmental, because they're learning and they're growing, and we're learning and we're growing. And we're learning how to do this together. So much of that blaming, once you can get clear around having some boundaries and limits, some of that blaming, there's ways that you can bring that blaming down. And one of the ways is to give them more responsibility for their own lives. They tend to blame more when we're doing a lot for them, and then they can blame us. And we'll talk about that. Number 8, you can't stand when your tween or teen is upset. Like I had said, I felt that way. And she was struggling with some things in school. And so I felt bad and I didn't want to see her upset. And so then I would cave in too. So it's all of these things we can end up doing. And if you answered yes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them, you're not alone. And I can raise my hand on every single one of those that I have felt that way. So just know that you're not alone. Boundaries have not come easy to me either. I have grown immensely in this area, but I still have to check in with myself and say, okay, I notice I'm feeling resentful. I got to get curious about that. So what might I need to do that I'm not feeling so resentful? Maybe I'm not asking for help. Maybe I need to set a boundary and I'm taking my kids somewhere. This is often common with moms. I'm taking my kids somewhere and it doesn't really work out for me. I wanted to go to my exercise class. And so I said yes to that rather than saying yes, but this is when it's going to work for me. So much of boundaries is us taking care of ourselves. So one of the common things that we do, and I want to go over here to see if any, hi Brenda, hi, do you say Aisha, Aisha, Isha, am I saying it right? That is me at the moment. My 10-year-old girl is so strong-willed. So I'm glad that you are relating to this. And so hopefully this is really will help you with some of these key things that you can start doing that can turn, I always call it the Titanic, that can turn the Titanic around if you feel like it's a Titanic right now. And it can really feel that way when we have kids and they're pulling away and they're becoming more independent and they want their freedom. Just know a lot of this is developmentally appropriate. They do want more independence. They do want more freedom. They do want to hang out with their friends more. And with that comes more arguing, more conflict. And so knowing that that is normal and we're going to have it, we have to learn how do we cope and deal with it in ways that work and are effective. One of the things that I see with parents is that we tend to want to punish. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but I'm going to touch on it. And if this is something that you want me to talk about next week, or you find that you feel like you're punishing, you're punitive, I talk a lot about consequences that work, consequences that don't work, why punishing doesn't work, because it's when we're feeling upset, when we're in the moment where what I call we're feeling that trigger, where we're just really having our body is just, we feel that surge of adrenaline and we feel so reactive and we start yelling. What do we want to do? We want to just punish. You're grounded for the next month. You're taking away your phone for a week, and we become very punitive. And what is not good about that are a couple of things. Number one, we're reacting in the moment, where we need to kind of step back and say and breathe and say, let's talk about this later, because we're not going to go anywhere good right now, but we will come back and we will talk about it. I know that takes a lot of self-control. It takes a lot of practice, but we can get better at that. When we remind ourselves, this isn't going to go anywhere good. It's not going to help to build a good relationship with my kid. Also, it builds resentment. And when we punish, it's building that resentment and it's causing a divide in our relationship with our kids. Consequences are different from punishment. Punishment is punitive, and it's inflicting like pain, where it's not going to teach your kids anything helpful or useful. It's not relational. There's a difference, and I know that difference can be confusing, but we want our kids to know that we're for them, we're not against them. And the more that we lay down the law and we punish, our kids are going to rebel, and they're going to resist, and they're going to resent. And you tell your kid you're grounded for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we go over the top when we're upset, right? We punish, and it tends to be more extreme. We're not going to be able to stick to it. And our kids at this age, that's why it's so hard parenting at this age. We don't have as much control. And that can be really difficult. So that's one of my next points of, if we're not going to be punitive and punishing, what can you do instead? Okay. So here are 5 keys to setting boundaries that work. Number 1, our message always needs to be, I care about you. I care about you. Why do we have limits for our kids? Is it to punish or be punitive or to be mean? No, it's because we care about them. And boundaries are like a fence. And so that's where lawnmower parents came from, is because the boundaries are like a fence around our yard. And as our kids, when they're little kids, they're in our yard, right? And we're caring for them. And then they get older and there's a gate and we have to open it up and then let them come and go, right? And then they have their own little yard of what belongs to them. And then we have our yard of what belongs to us. And so we have to say, okay, what belongs in their yard? What are they responsible for? What am I now responsible for? And we have to really get clear on that. And I have a 3-day boundaries course that I walk you through that. And I'll put the link in the comments if anybody wants to check it out. I really go into detail and getting clear on that. And what happens is the lawnmower parents come from where we jump into the yard, right? We're jumping into their yard and over their fence and they don't want us there. But boundaries keep our kids safe. And it teaches them of what to keep the bad out and to let the good in. That's why it's important, like your kids right now are arguing with you and they're pushing back against you. And we have to allow for a little bit of that They need to be respectful, but we have to allow for a little bit of that because they're working on figuring out who they are and what their boundaries and limits are. And we can help them with that. I'll go into that a little bit more. So the confusing part becomes like, what does it really mean to love our kid well, right? What does that really mean? That's, we can say, oh, I want to love my kid well, but some of that is uncomfortable. Conflict is uncomfortable. Saying no to our kids is uncomfortable. And it's going to cause some upset. Our kids aren't going to like if we say no to something, but it's our responsibility to have those limits, to keep the good in and keep the bad out. And as they get older, we have to start letting go. I love the book, Boundaries with Teens. I encourage you to check it out if this is an area that you really want to dig into and you realize that you need to develop some more boundaries. It's written by John Townsend, and he talks about the importance of our kids knowing without a doubt that we are on their side and we care about this. And he models well what we can say to convey this. And I love this. I am on your side. I'm doing this because I'm not doing this because I'm mad or I want to punish you or I don't care about you. I'm doing this because I want your best. And this doesn't mean that we won't be angry, that we won't feel like punishing, right? Sometimes we're going to feel like punishing. Sometimes we will. We can always come back and we can have a redo and say, hey, I was rethinking this. Maybe won't take your phone away for a month. You know, we can go back and we can talk to them. Number 2, identify what you can control and what you can't. And like I said, in the boundaries workshop, I have two separate columns. What can you control and what can't you? And as our kids enter these adolescent years, we need to gradually increase their responsibilities and give them those age-appropriate responsibilities while at the same time holding them accountable. And we have to think about how can we do that? Maybe you start teaching them how to do their laundry because they don't do their own laundry. Maybe they need to start helping more to contribute around the house to what needs to be done. Maybe they need to earn their own money. And so those are slowly things that we can start doing because those are boundaries too. Those are our boundaries that I remember the day when my daughter was yelling because she was blaming me, she couldn't find her shirt. And Mom, where did you put my shirt? And it's not here. And that was a great day for me because I said, honey, guess what? You get to do your own laundry now because you will find, you'll be able to find your shirt more. So I'm going to stop doing that. And I am giving you that responsibility because she was blaming. And I was like, I'm done. I was feeling resentful and I'm done. And it didn't have to be punishing, but I'm like, here you go. And it was great. And she started doing her laundry. Number 3, coach versus control. Now, punishment goes with wanting to control. And that's what happens when we're trying to grasp for control. And what does this look like? Well, control is it's based in fear because we're scared. Maybe our kid wants to start, I talked about that last week. Maybe our kid wants to start going to the mall and we're scared. And so we jump in, we say no right off the bat because we're scared versus thinking about maybe how we can give them more freedom and have some boundaries. And also what we tend to do is we control by fixing something, giving them advice. Have you noticed that when you tell your kid what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing, it usually doesn't work very well. They come to you maybe with a problem or something that they're going through. And our first reaction is to want to jump in there and to want to tell them what they need to do. Well, this is what you need to do. And then the whole conversation shuts down. Have you ever noticed that? And then they just stop talking. And you think, what just happened? And then we keep talking sometimes when they do that. And then it just puts up this wall. And then our kids are like, well, I'm not going to come and talk to you if you're going to be telling me what to do. They might not say that out loud, but it shuts down communication and connection when we do that. So instead, we want to ask instead of tell. And last week I was talking about the 80-20 rule. We want to listen 80% of the time and talk 20% of the time because we're helping them develop their own problem solving skills too. We want to teach them these skills. At the same time, we're teaching them that we are trusting that they do have good judgment. And sometimes we have to fake it until we make it. But when we are jumping in and rescuing, we're sending this message that, hey, I don't really believe in you. I don't really believe that you can figure this out. So here are for a few questions that you can ask them instead of jumping into fix. Okay, just a few little ideas to give you some. What do you want to do about that? Instead of us telling them what we think they should do, well, what do you think you want to do? What are some different options? What are some different choices? What do you think you need to do? What did you do? Sometimes we don't, wow, when that happened and the teacher said that to you, what did you do about that? Or you realized you didn't finish your paper and it was due. What did you do? What did you say? Rather than that judgment of, well, I told you should have gotten that paper turned in. That's why you get the late grade. And we offer that advice, which doesn't help. Instead of saying, well, what would you do differently? When you look back on that, what might you do differently so it wouldn't be late the next time? Now they might roll their eyes or they might not answer you. But when you ask these questions, these good questions, it gets them to think. And they're going to be more apt to talk to you. Also, we often, I'm going to take a sip. I'm having a little trouble talking today because I bit my inside of my lip or my mouth yesterday. It's like, ow, it's like right there. We also often give this unsolicited advice where we just jump in versus saying, how can I support you? You don't even ask, like, can I support you? Would you like me to help you out in any way? Where that's that I care about you. I want to come alongside of you. Can I support you with anything? Now they might tell you they want you to write their paper for that. And that won't work. And you have to set a boundary there. But thinking about just inviting, how can I support you? What might you need? And being curious about, okay, if they're struggling in a certain area, what might really be going on underneath the surface? Okay, let's see, was that? Okay, number 4. That was number 3. Allow them to make mistakes, experience natural consequences, and learn from them. Now it's summer for many of you, not all of you, but we don't have to deal with this maybe as much during the summer, but the school year, yes, this is a big one. When our kids are not maybe doing their homework or they're not making the best choices in certain areas. And so then we want to jump in again and rescue or fix something or offer advice. This is one of the hardest things that I really believe we have to do as parents. And we have become a generation of parents that do overdo. And I'm in that category too. I know I have overdone. My kids are older now, but I overdid in certain areas. And all the ways that I overdid when my kids left the nest, went to college, those were some of the areas that they really struggled in. And so we want to think about, where might I allow my kid to make some mistakes? Start making some mistakes. Maybe if they're telling you to back off in a certain area, of them getting that college application turned in, if they're going to college, that, getting their homework done, to be able to back off a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to let you do that and let them experience natural consequences. Now, in the podcast, I'm coming out with one where we talk about setting your kid up for success and that whole thing around college applications. And I know many of you are there right now and your kids maybe not as motivated, but sometimes it's like we can put our foot on the gas a little bit, but then we need to ease back. So here's a few things. We get out of the way and resist the urge to rescue them so they can learn from their mistakes and their successes, especially if you got a blamer. We got to get out of the way. We step back and stop doing so much for them so they can become responsible and develop problem solving skills. We show them that we have faith in them by not operating out of fear and allowing them to figure it out by themselves or with some guidance if they're asking. And we have to say, what do I need? That I am overly focused on this kid right now and what they're doing. Maybe I need to go take a walk so I can actually step back a little bit. So that's another thing that you can do. But think about where are some of those areas that you might allow them to just practice and learn from some of those mistakes. Number 5, we have to have a conversation. So this is a formula that I have. If you want this formula, email me at cheryl@momsofTweensandteens.com. It's so helpful. And when it comes to setting limits, and I know I've talked about so much today in this live, but when it comes to having a conversation with our kids, this formula can be very helpful. It actually is helpful in all of our relationships. We can start out with saying, I'm noticing. And this is really good because we tend to go into things with our kids where we're saying you versus I. And when we say you are doing this, you're doing that, it tends to cause defensiveness and resistance right out of the box. So you're not going to get very far. So if you say, I'm noticing I'm doing all the dishes around here. And that was going to be your job. And now I'm noticing I'm still doing them. So you want to say what you're noticing. So it's, I'm noticing, then you express the problem. And then what you want to say is you want to share what you want. I'm wanting you to help out doing the dishes. Okay? I don't want, and you can also share what you don't want. I don't want to be nagging you. I don't want to be fighting all the time or arguing about this. Okay, so you're saying what you want and what you don't want. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to be resentful. I don't like how I'm feeling. And I want you to help me out more. And then you want to share your thoughts. This is what I'm thinking. So you share, this is what I'm thinking. Then what you want to do is, how can we work this out? What do you think about this? See, because you're giving power to them, positive, what I call positive power to them, where they get a say in it versus you. So then they can come up with, okay, Mom, well, what do you think will work where you can help out? Well, I can do them at night, or I can do them in the morning, or put it down on a sticky note for me, or I hate doing the dishes. Okay, well, you hate doing the dishes, so do I, but what else might you do to help me then? If you really hate the dishes that much, are you willing to do this, right? So you're getting their input, and then you can negotiate and come up with an agreement. It can really be around anything, where you're having this conversation, but you're not just jumping in and saying no right off the bat. Like I was saying around the going to the mall, it might be, okay, you want to go to the mall. This is my problem. I get worried going to the mall. It's kind of scary for me. What I want to ensure that you can be safe when you go to the mall. So this is what I'm thinking. I'll go to the mall and I'll hang out at the food court. What do you think about that? And then you talk about it, but you're hearing them. Because remember, our kids want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be understood. And the more that we can give them the space to do that, the more agreeable they're going to start being. You will see a big shift in them being willing to talk about these things. And you're also teaching them some awesome skills for their future and for their relationships that are really going to build more healthy communication rather than just butting heads. Then you can get into, and I'm not going to get into this today, okay, well, if the dishes don't get done when you say they are, what do you think a consequence needs to be for that? And then you can talk about that and work that out. This isn't going to always go real smoothly. It can be messy, but it's just a little formula to use to be more effective when you're setting those limits. So check out, I'm going to go over here. Jolene, hi, so good to see you. Shayna, good to see you. Boundaries book is fabulous. Didn't know he wrote one just about boundaries with teens. Yes, he did. And I love that. Hi, Sally. Yeah. Marie, are you able to dot point these tips on your site, please? Yes, I can. I will actually share some in the comments, Marie, okay? And a link to a few things that can really help. I know it was a lot today. I mean, I felt like it was kind of all over the place, but the 3-day boundaries course is awesome because, you know, I have a whole section on there with consequences, like what consequences work, what don't. I take you through the first day, you know, knowing if you need boundaries, where you need boundaries, where your problem areas are. And I also want to say, just pick one thing. Like, I remember I used to go when my kids were little, I would go to these parenting talks and they would share so much, and I would come home and I'd have the chore chart and I would like try to do everything at once. And that doesn't work. So just think of one area where you need help, you know, you need help, or one area that's a tough area, and where you might talk about or think about setting a limit. It might just be for you. It might be, I just got a Hope, hi. Hi Hope. And Sally, I think I said hi to you. Sally's in the inner circle. I love how you show up for these, Sally. It's always good to see you. Okay, Hope, I'm in the thick of it, teen mom life with twin 15-year-old girls, and I struggle with the fine line of boundary and control. It's like, oh, two 15-year-old girls. Oh, Hope, you need your name right now, right? There is hope. And it is that fine, you said it so well. There is a fine line between setting limits and that control. And it's always going to be there. I really believe that, because we love our kids, because we can be fearful, because we want to protect them, and because we feel like if they just did what we thought they should do, then everything would work out right and well and be easier for them. And a lot of our kids have to learn things the hard way, which as a parent is really painful to watch that happening. And that gets into what we can control and what can't we. But I will say, the number one thing you want is you want to have a good relationship with your kids. So if you're here and you're listening to this and you're having a really hard time with your kid, you might just want to think about, how can you spend time doing something where you can connect with them. And sometimes our relationships with our kids are so broken down, they don't even want to hang out with us or do anything. And to be quite honest, maybe we don't want to hang out with them either, because there's a lot of conflict. Maybe it's just take them to Starbucks and go through the drive-thru. And you're in the car and you don't say very much at all, but you're with them. You start there, start really small, building back that relationship. Maybe you say, hey, I've noticed, right? I'm noticing that our relationship isn't good. I want to have a better relationship with you. I really do. And what do you think you need from me or don't need from me that might help? And you ask them that question. It's a dangerous question to ask, because you expect that you might get some not good feedback and you might want to be defensive. And that is totally and completely normal. But just to be able to say, oh, I hate hearing that, but thank you for telling me. I'm going to work on that. I do that a lot now. And how I take care of myself is I say, ow, okay, I don't like hearing that. That's painful to hear that, but I'm going to work on that, you know? And our kids, you'll notice, wow, my mom's becoming this safer place for me to talk. My mom's becoming this where she's wanting to understand me and wanting to hear me. And then that 80-20 rule of listen 80%. I was working with a mom yesterday in our session, and she said, that alone, just your 80-20 rule, has made a huge difference. I can't believe it. I'm just like zipping it and I'm listening. And you can go, huh, really? Yeah. Wow, what did you do? Yeah, I can see how that would make you angry. You just like reflect, reflect, reflect. I love the realness and transparency. These discussions are so needed and appreciated. Thank you. I am late to live video, but hope to watch it again later. Thank you, Jessica. We need realness, don't we? We need to know. I'm here because of all that I have learned making so many mistakes. And that's the cool thing. As I close, I just want to say to you, you're learning, you're growing, and that it's that whole growth mindset that if you're struggling right now, I just want to hold out hope to you and say that you're not alone and that it's never too late. And that you digging in around this and thinking about the things I'm sharing and you showing up and you being here, you can say to your kid, I'm learning right along with you. And you know what? I'm doing my own work, whatever you want to call it. I use the word work, that might not be yours, but I am working on myself and learning how to do some of this right alongside of you. That is so, I'm here right alongside you, not that I'm up here, you're down here, right? We tend to just want to tell them and, what they need to be doing differently or what they need to be doing. And we want to control things. So just thinking about like taking a deep breath and being curious about the control thing. What am I afraid of? Or if I don't control this, what might happen? We tend to catastrophize, right? We tend to go really to the dark side of what might happen. And then if we're going there, we can say, okay, because we all do that too. We fortune tell, we catastrophize. We can say, all right, what might I need to do in my relationship with my kid? What conversation might I need to have? Because a lot of it is around safety. And we're feeling scared. How can we set them up and have a more connecting conversation around whatever it is? That's where talking about the adolescent brain can be so helpful as well. So maybe next week, let me know, okay? What do you want me to talk about next week when I come to this? Send me your questions, Cheryl@momsofteensandteens.com, so I can answer them specifically. And that's what I'm here for. And I can't remember I can't remember what I was going to say. But anyway, I so appreciate you being here. Thank you. And I will share a few things down in the comments. And I see, Marie, yours, I'd appreciate it. I'm having boundary issues with my 16-year-old daughter. And that's a tough age. You are right in it, if you're still here, Marie, of 16. Having to give a little bit more freedom, less control, letting it out a little bit. It's scary. That's like that age where it's changing, right? And just trying to navigate all that can be very confusing. So anyway, thank you for being here. Love you, gals. And I'm excited to hear from you and for you to send me your questions for next week, okay? So have a great week, and I will hopefully see you back here next Wednesday. And thank you for joining me. All right, see you later.